What do we want?
Justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
Right now.
Home is supposed to be your safe place, the one location in the world where you can let your guard down, where you can simply exist without explanation, without justification, without fear. But what happens when someone decides you don't belong in your own home? This is the story of Maya Patel, a 32-year-old software engineer, a daughter of immigrants, a woman who worked 2 jobs to afford her dream apartment in a neighborhood she'd fallen in love with. A woman who came home one evening and had to prove she had the right to walk through her own front door. This isn't a story about anger. It's a story about belonging, about the invisible borders we draw around who gets to feel safe and who has to constantly prove they deserve to be there. And ultimately, it's a story about finding your voice when the world tries to silence it. Maya had dreamed about this moment for 5 years. Standing in front of the brick townhouse at 847 Maple Street, keys in hand, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Pure, uncomplicated pride. The neighborhood of Westbrook Heights was everything she'd imagined. Tree-lined streets, Victorian-era architecture, a farmer's market every Saturday, coffee shops with names like The Reading Nook and Periwinkle Cafe. It was the kind of place you saw in magazines. The kind of place that whispered, "You've made it." And Maya had made it. She'd graduated top of her computer science class, despite working 20 hours a week at a campus bookstore. She'd taken an entry-level position at a tech startup when her parents had begged her to pursue something more stable. She'd lived with 3 roommates in a cramped apartment for 7 years, saving every penny she could spare. Her father had wanted her to buy in their old neighborhood, among our people, he'd said, meaning the South Asian community where they'd built their life after immigrating from Mumbai when Maya was 6. But Maya wanted something different, not because she was ashamed of where she came from, never that, but because she wanted to choose her own path, to build a life that was entirely, authentically hers. "You'll be the only brown face on the block," her mother had warned, not with judgment, but with the protective instinct of someone who understood what that meant. "Then I'll be the first," Maya had replied with more confidence than she felt. Moving day had been chaotic and wonderful. Her brother Raj and his husband Daniel helped carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. Her best friend Sophie brought pizza and wine. Her parents came despite their reservations, and her mother had blessed every room with prayers and the scent of sandalwood incense. "Be safe, Beta," her mother had whispered, holding Maya's face in her hands. "And remember, you belong wherever you choose to be." Maya had nodded, believing it completely. That was 6 months ago. For half a year, Maya had lived her dream. She'd painted the living room a soft sage green, hung fairy lights on her small balcony, planted herbs in terracotta pots, made friends with the elderly couple next door who always complimented her cooking when the scent of curry and spices drifted through her open windows. She walked to work 3 days a week, taking the scenic route through the park. She'd joined a book club at the library. She'd even started dating someone, a kind, funny man named Owen, who worked at the museum and made her laugh until her sides hurt. Life was good. Better than good. Maya felt like she'd finally found where she belonged. It was a Thursday in late October. The air had that crisp quality that makes you want to wrap yourself in oversized sweaters and drink hot tea. Maya had worked late, debugging a particularly stubborn piece of code. She was exhausted but satisfied, the kind of tired that comes from solving a problem you've been wrestling with for days. She stopped at the corner market to grab milk and bread. Mr. Chen, who ran the store, greeted her warmly. They chatted about the upcoming neighborhood Halloween festival. Maya had promised to help with setup. "You're good for this neighborhood," Mr. Chen had said as she left. "We need more young people with good energy." Maya walked home as dusk settled over Westbrook Heights. Street lamps flickered on. Lights glowed in windows. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing piano, something classical and melancholy that suited the autumn evening perfectly. She turned onto Maple Street, her street, and felt that small surge of happiness she still got every time. This was her home. That's when she noticed the woman. She was standing on the sidewalk in front of Maya's building, watching. White, probably in her 50s, wearing an expensive-looking coat and holding a leash attached to a small, fluffy dog that looked more like a mop than an animal. Maya had seen her before. She lived 2 buildings down. They'd never spoken, though Maya had smiled and waved a few times. The woman had never waved back. As Maya approached her building's entrance, the woman called out, "Excuse me." Maya turned, grocery bag in hand. "Yes? Do you live here?" The woman's tone was sharp, accusatory. Maya felt something shift in the air, a subtle change in temperature that had nothing to do with the weather. "Yes," Maya said carefully. "I'm in 3B. Are you sure?" The woman took a step closer, her dog yapping at her feet. "Because I know everyone who lives in this building, and I've never seen you before." That was a lie. Maya had lived here for 6 months. She'd passed this woman at least a dozen times. "I've lived here since April," Maya said, trying to keep her voice even. "I'm Maya Patel." "That's a foreign name," the woman said, as if Maya needed this pointed out to her. "It's Indian," Maya replied. "My parents are from Mumbai. I was born in New Jersey." Why was she explaining herself? Why did she feel like she owed this stranger her biography? "Well, there's been a lot of break-ins in this neighborhood lately," the woman said, eyeing Maya's casual work clothes, jeans, a flannel shirt, sneakers. Not the polished professional image Maya usually projected. "People who don't belong here coming in and casing buildings. I'm just being careful. People who don't belong here." The words landed like stones. "I appreciate your concern for the neighborhood," Maya said, her jaw tight. "But I do live here. Now, if you'll excuse me." She moved toward the entrance, pulling her keys from her pocket. "I'm going to need to verify that," the woman said. Maya stopped, turned. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'm going to need to verify that you actually live here before I let you go inside." Let her. As if this woman had any authority. As if Maya needed permission to enter her own home. "Ma'am," Maya said, her voice shaking slightly. Not with fear, but with anger she was struggling to control. "I don't need your permission to enter my home. I pay rent here. I have every right—" "I'm calling the police," the woman interrupted, pulling out her phone. Maya's blood went cold. "Wait," she said, hating the pleading tone in her voice. "There's no need for that. Look, here are my keys. I can show you my mailbox. I can—" But the woman was already dialing, her eyes never leaving Maya's face. "Yes, hello? I'd like to report a suspicious person attempting to enter a building at 847 Maple Street. She claims to live here, but I've never seen her before, and she's acting very defensive and aggressive." Aggressive. Maya had raised her voice slightly. Once. That was now aggressive. "No, I'm standing right here. I'm not letting her inside until you arrive. She could be dangerous. Dangerous." Maya, who cried during sad movies. Who rescued spiders instead of killing them. Who'd never been in a physical altercation in her life. Dangerous. Maya felt her phone buzz in her pocket. A text from Owen. "Still on for tomorrow night?" Tomorrow night felt like it existed in a different universe. "Fine," Maya said, her voice hollow. "I'll wait." She sat down on the front steps of her own building. The concrete was cold through her jeans. Her grocery bag sat beside her, the milk probably getting warm. The woman stood several feet away, phone still in hand, dog still yapping, watching Maya like she was a wild animal that might bolt at any moment. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Maya watched neighbors walk by. Some glanced over curiously. None stopped to ask what was happening. A young couple she'd seen before crossed the street rather than walk past the scene. Maya pulled out her phone and texted her brother. "Something's happening. Woman called cops on me for trying to enter my own apartment." Raj's response was immediate. "What? Are you okay? Do you need me to come there?" "I'm okay. Just wait." But was she okay? Maya didn't feel okay. She felt humiliated, exhausted, angry in a way that made her hands shake. She thought about her mother's words. "You belong wherever you choose to be." But did she? Did she really? A police car pulled up, lights flashing but no siren. Two officers emerged, one white male, probably in his 40s, and one Latina woman who looked younger, maybe early 30s. The male officer approached the woman with the dog first. They spoke in low voices. Maya saw the woman gesturing animatedly, pointing at Maya, her expression a mixture of concern and vindication. The female officer approached Maya. "Good evening, ma'am. Can you tell me what's going on here?" Maya stood up, suddenly very aware of her body language. Hands visible, posture open, voice calm. All the things she'd learned from countless articles about how to survive a police encounter while not white. "I live here," Maya said. "I was coming home from work and that woman stopped me. She demanded proof that I live here and called the police when I tried to enter my own building. Do you have identification?" "Yes." Maya slowly reached for her bag, announcing each movement. "I'm reaching into my purse for my wallet." She pulled out her driver's license. The address matched. 847 Maple Street. Apartment 3B. The officer studied it, then looked at Maya. For a moment, just a moment, Maya saw something in the officer's eyes. Recognition, understanding, maybe even sympathy. "And you have keys to the building?" Maya held them up. "Wait here, please." The officer walked back to her partner and the woman with the dog. More conversation, the woman's voice rising. "Can't be too careful. Break-ins. Didn't look like she belonged." Didn't look like she belonged. The male officer approached Maya while his partner continued talking to the woman. "Miss Patel, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. We're going to verify your residence with the building manager. Do you have their contact information?" "It's almost 9 at night," Maya said, her voice cracking slightly. "And I've already shown you my ID with this address. I've shown you my keys. What more do you need? Do my white neighbors get interrogated like this when they come home?" The question hung in the air. The officer's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Discomfort, maybe. Or defensiveness. "We're just following protocol, ma'am. We received a call and we need to verify—" "Verify what?" Maya's voice was louder now, months of swallowing small indignities finally bubbling over. "Verify that I'm allowed to exist in this neighborhood? Verify that a brown woman can afford to live here? What exactly are you verifying, Maya?" A voice called from across the street. Maya turned. It was Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, the elderly couple from next door. They were hurrying over, Mrs. Henderson still in her house slippers. "Officers, what's going on?" Mr. Henderson asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being listened to. "This is our neighbor, Maya. She lives in 3B. Has for months. Lovely girl. Makes the most wonderful food." Mrs. Henderson nodded vigorously. "We have tea together every Sunday." "Maya, dear, what's happened?" Maya felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. She would not cry, not here. Not in front of these people who'd already taken so much from her tonight. The female officer turned to the Hendersons. "You can confirm she resides here?" "Of course she does," Mrs. Henderson said, indignant now. "What is this about?" The male officer looked uncomfortable. "We received a report of a suspicious person." "Suspicious?" Mr. Henderson's face reddened. "She's our neighbor, for heaven's sake. She helped me carry groceries up the stairs last week when my back was acting up. She watered our plants when we visited our daughter." "Suspicious? This is ridiculous." The woman with the dog had gone quiet, her face pale. More neighbors had emerged now, drawn by the police lights, by the commotion, by the gravitational pull of other people's drama. Sophie, Maya's best friend who lived 3 blocks away, came running up the street, still in her work clothes. "Maya, I saw your location on my phone. What's happening?" "Ms. Patel is a valued member of this community," Mr. Henderson continued. And Maya noticed he'd positioned himself slightly in front of her, an old man with a bad back, shielding her with his privilege. "And I'm frankly appalled that she's being treated like a criminal in front of her own home." The female officer sighed, a sound that suggested this wasn't her first encounter like this. "And it wouldn't be her last, Miss Patel," she said quietly, turning to face Maya directly. "I apologize for the delay. You're clearly a resident here. You're free to go inside. Free, as if she'd been detained. As if her freedom was something these strangers had the power to grant or deny. That's it?" Sophie demanded. "That's all you're going to say? Someone racially profiles her, calls the police on her for existing in her own neighborhood, and all you say is you're free to go?" The male officer shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, if Miss Patel wants to file a complaint, against whom? Maya asked, her voice tired now. Against her? She gestured to the woman with the dog. What would that accomplish? She was concerned about break-ins. She was protecting her neighborhood. That's not illegal. Being suspicious of brown people apparently isn't a crime. The woman with the dog spoke for the first time since the police arrived. I was just trying to keep everyone safe. With all the crime— There is no crime wave, Mr. Henderson interjected. I've lived on this street for 37 years. This is one of the safest neighborhoods in the city. What you were trying to do was keep certain people out. The woman's face flushed. I'm not racist. I have friends who are— Please don't finish that sentence, Maya said quietly. Just don't. The police left. The woman with the dog retreated to her building, avoiding everyone's eyes. The small crowd of neighbors dispersed slowly, some offering Maya awkward smiles or words of support, others slipping away quietly, uncomfortable with the tension. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson insisted on walking Maya up to her apartment. You shouldn't have had to go through that, Mrs. Henderson said, her hand on Maya's arm. I'm so sorry we didn't come out sooner. We heard the commotion but thought, well, we thought wrong. We should have looked. Sophie stayed too, and once they were inside Maya's apartment, her safe space that suddenly felt less safe, Maya finally let herself break down. She sank onto her couch and cried. Not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that had been building for an hour, for 6 months, for a lifetime of being made to feel like she was occupying space she didn't deserve. Sophie sat beside her, holding her hand. The Hendersons made tea in her kitchen, the familiar ritual of boiling water and steeping leaves a small anchor in the storm. I did everything right, Maya finally said, her voice hoarse. I got the education. The job, I saved the money. I found the perfect apartment. I've been a good neighbor. I smile at everyone. I joined the community events, and still she looked at me and saw a threat. I know, Sophie said softly. Do you? Maya turned to her friend, her white, blonde, blue-eyed friend who'd never had to prove she belonged anywhere. Do you really know what it's like to be questioned just for existing? Sophie was quiet for a moment. No, she admitted. I don't. I can't. But I see you, Maya. I see how hard you work to make everyone comfortable with your presence. And I'm sorry I've never called that out before. I'm sorry I didn't realize how exhausting that must be. Mrs. Henderson brought over tea in Maya's mismatched mugs. One said, "World's okayest employee, a gift from her brother." The normalcy of it made Maya want to cry again. My parents were right, Maya said. They warned me. They knew what I was walking into. Being right doesn't make it fair, Mr. Henderson said, settling into her armchair with the ease of someone welcomed. When we moved to this neighborhood in the 80s, it was different. Redlining was still fresh in people's memories. We've watched this place change, mostly for the better, we thought. But tonight showed me we still have neighbors who think they can decide who belongs and who doesn't. He looked at Maya directly. You belong here, not because we vouch for you, not because you're one of the good ones, but because you chose to live here, and that's enough. That should always be enough, Maya's phone buzzed, text messages piling up. Her brother, her parents, word had spread. Her mother's message was simple. Come home, Beta. Come where you're safe. But where was that exactly? Maya's old neighborhood? Her parents' house? Those places were safe from this particular kind of discrimination, maybe. But they came with their own limitations, their own pressures. I don't want to run away, Maya said, surprising herself. I don't want to let her win. I chose this place. I chose this life. Why should I have to give it up? You shouldn't, Sophie said firmly. You absolutely shouldn't. The next morning, Maya woke up in her own bed, in her own apartment, and made a decision. She got dressed with extra care. Professional pants, a crisp blouse, her favorite blazer. Armor, in a way, but also a reclamation. She wasn't dressing to make others comfortable. She was dressing for herself. She made coffee in her kitchen, sat on her balcony with her herbs and her fairy lights, watched the neighborhood wake up, and then she went downstairs and knocked on the woman's door. It took a long time for the door to open. When it did, the woman looked startled. Scared even. I'm not here to yell at you, Maya said calmly. I'm here to tell you my name. I'm Maya Patel. I'm a software engineer. I like mystery novels and terrible reality TV. I make really good biryani. I pay my rent on time. I help my neighbors. I vote in local elections. I volunteer at the community garden. And I live at 847 Maple Street, apartment 3B. The woman opened her mouth, but Maya continued. Last night, you made me feel like I didn't deserve to be here, like my presence was something suspicious, something threatening. And I want you to know that your fear doesn't define me. Your assumptions don't define me. I define me. The woman started, her voice shaking. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was scared, and I let that turn into something ugly. I know, Maya said, but your apology doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo the humiliation. It doesn't give me back the sense of safety I felt in my own home. What can I do? The woman asked, and she seemed genuinely at a loss. Learn, Maya said simply. Question your assumptions. When you see someone who doesn't look like you in your neighborhood, ask yourself why you think of it as your neighborhood and not theirs too. Do the work to understand why you saw me as a threat instead of a neighbor. The woman nodded, tears in her eyes. I will, I promise I will. Maya didn't know if she believed her. But she'd said what she needed to say. That afternoon, Maya met with the building manager and several neighbors. They drafted a letter to be distributed to all residents, a reminder that Maple Street was a diverse community, that racial profiling would not be tolerated, that calling the police on neighbors of color without legitimate cause was unacceptable. Mr. Henderson spoke at the next neighborhood association meeting, telling Maya's story, with her permission, and challenging the community to do better. Sophie started an informal ally group for neighbors who wanted to actively work against discrimination. And Maya stayed, not because it was easy, not because everything magically got better overnight, but because she'd claimed this space and she refused to let fear, hers or anyone else's, drive her out. She planted more herbs on her balcony. She kept going to book club. She held her head high every time she walked down Maple Street. Some days were harder than others. Some days she felt the weight of representation, of having to be perfect, of always being aware of how she was perceived. But other days, she just felt like Maya, a woman who loved her apartment, her neighborhood, her carefully built life, and slowly, very slowly, that feeling of belonging she'd had on move-in day started to return. Not the naive belonging of someone who'd never been challenged, but a harder, earned belonging, the kind that comes from refusing to be erased. Maya's story is one of millions, stories of people who are told in ways both subtle and overt that they don't belong, that their presence is suspicious, that they need to justify their existence in spaces that others simply inhabit without question. But her story is also about resistance, about claiming space, about refusing to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Belonging isn't something that should have to be earned. It isn't something that should depend on the approval of others. It's a fundamental right to exist, to live, to feel safe in the spaces you inhabit. The question we all have to ask ourselves is, whose belonging are we protecting, and whose are we denying? Because until everyone can come home without being questioned, none of us are truly free.